Hello everybody and welcome to another Unreal Engine tutorial. In today's tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to create a pause menu. Now this follows along from the main menu tutorial that I did last, so if you haven't done the main menu tutorial I highly recommend you go back and do that one first, because there is some things that I cover in there that are going to be useful here, so please watch that one first. But yeah, let's get started. So I have the first person shooter template level here. I also have a main menu level which you should have done in the main menu tutorial, so I recommend you go and do that if you haven't done it already. Have a main menu level, because the pause menu is going to give you the option to return to the main menu. So let's go into my UI folder which I made last time, and you'll see I've added an extra button called the resume button. Okay, so this is going to be used on our pause menu. Let's actually create the pause menu screen first of all. So I'm going to right click in a blank space, go to user interface, and then choose widget blueprint. And I'm going to call this pause menu widget. Okay, I'm going to open that up, and I'm also going to drag the tab and dock it to the main Unreal editor so that I can swap between the tabs nice and easy. And you might recognize this from the main menu tutorial. This is the UMG editor where we designed the menu screen. So let's do the same for a pause menu. So I'm going to get some text and drag it in. I'm going to name the text. I'm going to call it pause. And let's make that a bit bigger. Let's size that to content. Let's pick another font. Let's go with that. Okay. So there's the word pause. We also are going to need a couple of buttons. So I'm going to drag in a button. And I'm going to rename that button to button underscore resume. And then down here, I'm going to change the images from being blank to having the resume button images on. So we need resume normal. We need resume hovered. And resume pressed. Okay, you also need to make sure you tick size to content, because as you can see that button doesn't look right at the moment. We do size to content, and there we go, it scales it up. I'm going to put my buttons kind of here on the left side, so I'm also going to just click the anchor point and put it onto the left there. Okay, and then I'm going to need to duplicate this button, so I'm just going to right click on it here, choose duplicate, and that gives us a second one. And I'm going to change the images on this one to the quit button. So we want quit normal, quit hovered, and quit pressed. I'm also going to rename that. Rather than being button resume 1, I'm going to rename that to button quit. Okay. We could also make sure that they are aligned, because they're not quite aligned with each other at the moment. So that one's got position X at 180. So I'm going to do the same for this one. There we go. So they are now perfectly aligned that way. And let's add I'm just going to add a blur, a background blur node as well. Let's make it the full size of the screen. Actually, no, let's make it like that. So it just kind of covers that bar on the screen there. We also need to increase the blur strength. So on the right side here, you got blur strength. Put that up. Obviously, at the moment, it's blurring everything, but that's just because it's on top of the buttons and the text. So over here on this side, if you click and drag it up the list and put it just above the text there. There we go, now that's appearing on top. Okay, I'm just going to hit compile quickly. Right, so that's the design done. But now we need to do the programming. So if we go over to the graph tab, and we can get rid of those nodes, we're not going to need them. I'm going to click on button resume here. I'm going to add an on-clicked event there. And we'll come back to this in a minute, so I'm going to create some code in a different blueprint in a minute that we're going to then link to, but I can't do that until it's there. So the quit button though, we can do that now. So let's click on quit button, add an on-clicked event, and then we're going to do an open level. And that's because we're going to make this go back to the main menu, okay? If we wanted it to just outright quit the game, we could use a quit game node, but we want it to go to the main menu. So I'm going to go back to the main editor. I'm going to go to content, first person BP, maps, and I'm going to just make sure I get that name exactly right. So I'm going to press F2 to bring up the renaming, and I'm going to do Control C to copy that name. I'm going to go back into the menu widget, and I'm going to paste it in there. So now I know that is exactly the right name. So that should take me back to the main menu when it's clicked. I'm going to click compile. I'm going to save it. And then we'll come back to this in a moment when we've added the other blueprint elsewhere. So let's do that now. So if we go back to the level 1, or sorry, the main level, yours might still be called first person example map. It depends if you renamed it, if you did the main menu tutorial. But we're actually going to add some code in now onto the character. This isn't necessarily the best place or the right place to put it, but in terms of just being able to link it up with the pause system, it's quite straightforward, so that's why I'm going to do it there. So if you select the first person character here, or whatever your character is in your project, and edit their blueprint, you should get something kind of like this. Let's move down into a blank space, and we need to create some functions first. Now, you may not have done this before, but it's very, very simple. So function is basically like it's almost like creating your own little node, you know, like this kind of thing. It's like creating your own one of these, but yeah, it's quite straightforward, but you'll see. If I click on over here on functions, there's this button here that says add function. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to call this function pause. Yeah, I'm going to call it pause game. Okay, and then we're going to add in the code for how it should pause the game. Now, there's several things that we need to make sure it does. So one of the things, the main thing obviously, is that we want it to actually pause the game, but we usually add that at the end so that it does everything else we need to do. So we also want it to make the pause menu appear. So let's do that first. So if we drag off here and do a create widget. Okay, and we are going to select our pause menu. Now you might remember from the last tutorial that this creates the widget but doesn't actually put it on screen. We're going to put it on screen, but first we're going to do something slightly different. I want you to right click here on return value and promote that to a variable. And the reason we're going to do that is because we're going to need to kind of reference this pause menu a bit later on. So we can actually save it here. So it's made a new variable called newvar0, which I want you to rename to pause menu ref for reference. Okay, then you can drag off of this and do add to viewport. So do an add to viewport like that, and that will then put it on the screen. Okay, so that will actually make our menu appear, which is good. We also, though, however, still need to do things like get the mouse cursor to show up on screen. We also need it to be have the input mode set right so that it actually has control over on the menu. So to do that, we're going to get a player controller. So right click in a blank space, you get player controller, and off of this do set show mouse cursor and tick the box, and then connect it up like that. So that is now going to show the mouse cursor. And we also want to set input mode. Now we're going to actually need this to be game and UI. And the reason for that is because we're going to be able to pause and unpause using a key press, as well as using the menu itself. So if it's only set to UI mode, the keyboard press won't work. So we need to make sure it's on this mode. So do set input mode to game and UI. And then the in widget to focus, this is where we're going to use this pause menu ref. So I'm going to drag that, plug that in there. Okay, so that's referencing the pause menu. It's basically saying what widget do you want me to be like engaged with when this event happens, and yeah, we want it to be engaged with the pause menu. So that's why we do that. Okay, so far then, when the pause game event runs, it's going to create the widget, make a reference of it, stick it on the viewport so the player can see it. It's also going to show the mouse cursor and also make sure it is engaged so that the mouse is already taking control of the menu. Okay. So the final thing we need to do along here is actually get it to actually pause the game. So drag off the end here and just do set game paused and tick the box there. And that will pause the game. Okay, so that's a function that we've just created that's going to pause the game, stick the pause menu up on the screen, and give the player control with the mouse to be able to control the menu. We also need another function, which is going to be to unpause the game. So let's add that as well. So click on Add Function over on the left and call that Unpause Game. Okay, and then this one, we kind of need to do like the opposite of what that first one did. So we need to get rid of the menu off the screen. So I'm going to drag pause menu ref in and get it. I'm going to drag off that and do remove from parent. Okay, and that basically deletes the widget off the screen. Okay, so do a remove from parent. Then we need to get another player controller. And from this, again, we need to set show mouse cursor. And this time we're going to leave the box unticked because we want the mouse cursor to be turned off now. And we also want to set the input mode to the game. So input mode game only. Okay. And then finally, we should also set the game unpaused. So do set game paused. And then again, make sure you leave this box unticked so that it unpauses the game. Okay. So that should be all we need. So now we actually need something to set off the pause menu. So what I'm going to do is go to the event graph in a blank space here. I would use the escape key, but by default in the Unreal Editor, the escape key just closes the preview. Now you can change that by editing keybinds and things like that, but I don't want to go over that in this tutorial. So I'm just going to use the P key instead. So I'm going to right click in a blank space, search for P, and if you scroll up, you should find somewhere. There's the keys. There they are. You have to look for the key symbols. There they are. This little keyboard symbol, and then find the P key. There it is. Okay. So this is going to add the P key. Alternatively, if you have already created an input for pausing, you could add that in instead. But for this, for the sake of speed and things, for now, I'm just going to use this. This key press here. Okay, so there's one important thing that we need to do with this as well, and that is up on the right here, we need to make sure execute when paused is ticked. Okay, if that's not ticked, it means that we won't be able to unpause the menu using the same key. So make sure that is on execute when paused. If we drag off of pressed here and do a branch, first thing we're going to want it to do is to check if the game is paused or not. So off of the condition here, if you search paused, there is a function pre-made already that says is game paused. So use this. So that's going to check if the game is paused or not. If the game is not paused, so if this is false, we want it to pause game. So now if I search pause game, you can see those two functions that we made are here. So just add pause game. And then if it's true, if the game is paused, we want it to unpause game. So add that one to there. Okay, then you can highlight this text and do pause/unpause. Right, I'm going to hit compile and save. And let's give this a little try and see if it works. So I'm going to go in here and hit play. So I can move around. And if I press the P key, there's our pause menu. The character is not moving. I'm using WSAD to try and move the character. I'm using the mouse. It's not moving the character at all. So the game is paused, which is good. If I hover the mouse over the buttons are reacting to the mouse. If I press resume, it's not going back into the game. So there is a little problem there. Let's see if I press P, if it works. Yeah, okay, so pressing P does allow me to go back into the game. And of course, the resume button's not working because that's the thing that we needed to go back and add the code to, if you remember. So that's why that won't work. The quit button should work, so let's click on that. And yeah, that takes me back to the main menu. Okay, so let's go back into our pause menu widget and add the code here for the resume button. All right, so what we can do here then is drag off of this, and if we do a cast to first person character, because that's where the unpausing code is, and that's why I did it in the first person character, because it's quite easy to just reference the character. So off of object, we need a get player pawn, and then off of this, the blue dot here, if we drag off this, we should be able to find the unpaused event. There it is, unpause game. And if we do compile, and let's hit play. So again, I'm in control, I'm moving around, press P. Not moving anymore, buttons are reacting, and if I click resume, we're back in the game, and it's re-engaged with the control of the player, and also using the P key, pauses and unpauses it as well. And quit goes back to the main title. So there we go, that is a functioning pause menu. So thank you everybody for watching. I hope you learned something during this tutorial. There will be another tutorial on menus going a bit more in depth, like how to make an options screen, as well as transitioning between some different menu screens and stuff like that. But for now, that's it for this pause menu. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.